students, I am Poulomi and today we are going to learn about the linguistic diversity in India and the contributing factors. Did you ever notice that the value of a currency note in India is written in 17 languages? Well, if you haven't, you should possibly pick up any Indian currency note right now and see it for yourself. And if you have, then you are already aware that there is no one language that this country, the Indian nation, speaks. Neither any single language has been declared as the national language. Hindi and English are only used by the central government, while each state has the freedom to choose its official language. A total of 22 languages have been declared as the scheduled languages by our constitution. However, the estimates of the actual number of languages vary greatly. Ethnologue, as assessed on 4th April 2021, lists 461 individual languages. These include 447 living and 14 extinct. Of the living languages, 63 are institutional, 130 are developing, 187 are vigorous, 54 are in trouble, and 13 are dying. However, according to the Census of India 2011, the total number of languages stands at 121, 22 scheduled and 99 non-scheduled, much less than what Ethnologue accounts for. The People's Linguistic Survey of India, PLSI, which was carried out between 2010 to 2013, identified 780 languages across the country and said that there could be another 100 languages. Speech Studies PLSI, India's first language survey in a century, which unlike the previous one was not a government effort, was spearheaded by G.N. Davy and his Bhasha Research and Publication Centre with the help of 3,000 people, a tenth of whom were linguists, and the Denotified and Nomadic Tribes Action Group, which he co-founded. This survey revealed, interestingly, that Arunachal Pradesh, with its 90 languages, was the state with the greatest number of languages across the Indian states. Around 220 languages have gone extinct in the past 5 years. Thus, there is no doubt that India is a home to a wide variety of languages, a veritable Tower of Babel, and as aptly put by the eminent scholar A.R. Dasa, India represents a spectacle of museum of tongues. This vast number of languages is classified into 4 or 6 language families and genealogical types: Austroasiatic, Munda, Dravidian, Indo-Aryan, and Tibeto-Burman. More recently, 2 other language families have been reported: Tai-Kadai and Great Andamanese. Speakers of diverse languages and language families have closely interacted with each other over millennia. In this lesson, we will learn about the various theories that have tried to explain this diversity of languages, the contributing factors. Systematic documentation of languages, linguistic affinities, and classification of Indian languages was undertaken for the first time in the British colonial era. This exercise was largely motivated by the need to understand the culture and social organization of their colony in India better through its languages. Their ultimate goal was to consolidate their administrative position in the colony. According to Trotman, the knowledge creation about Indian languages and society was the result of partnership between British Orientalists and Indian Pandits under the colonial condition. British Orientalist discourse on India paved the way for the concept of the superior Aryan race and the scientific racism in the 20th century. This development can be traced back to William Jones' discovery of Sanskrit and his claim for the monogenesis of Sanskrit and of Greek and Latin. Jones, a judge in the British Bengal and an Orientalist, made observations regarding the similarity of the Indian language, Sanskrit, and the European classical languages, Greek and Latin, in his 3rd anniversary lecture at the Asiatic Society of Calcutta on 2nd February 1786. This discovery was fundamental to the subsequent development in philology, which led to the postulation of historical relationships among languages, their classifications, and eventually language families. The discovery of Jones led to the postulation of an Indo-European language family, which became the foundation for comparative philology and the standard of historical linguists. The Indo-European language family, of which Sanskrit, Greek, and Latin were members, is the most extensively studied of these families. The shared ancestry of the speakers of European languages and those of Persian and the Indo-Aryan languages are now strongly established. This interest encouraged the comparative philology enterprise, culminating in the proposition for shared parentage and a family of languages which included Indic and European languages. The philological label Indo-Aryan was maneuvered to construct the superior Indo-Aryan race, ethnic group members of which had presumably originally lived in Central Asia. Thus, the Aryan language speakers in the subcontinent, like its British colonizers, were outsiders. As is well documented but greatly debated, this discovery of the philological research was instrumental in proposing that the speakers of the Aryan languages in northern India have migrated into Indian subcontinent in prehistoric times, and by the virtue of their superior knowledge of advanced metallurgical techniques, well-developed rituals, military arts, and horsemanship, had assumed a socially dominant position, subjugating in the process original inhabitants of the subcontinent. Subsequently, guided by the doctrine of the linguistic unity of India, the Calcutta-based Orientalists had advocated the theory that the South Indian languages were descendants of the Sanskrit language too. This philological enterprise was clearly usurped by the Indologists interested in the prehistory of the Indian subcontinent. Way back in 1894, Sir George Grierson, a British magistrate resident in India, conducted a linguistic survey of India, which included what is now Pakistan and Bangladesh, and found the existence of 179 languages and 544 component dialects of these languages in northern India. He almost excluded the Dravidian-speaking parts of South India. However, colonial officers stationed in South India, Madras Presidency, realized the distinctiveness of South in terms of land systems, languages, land tax settlement, and district administration, legal traditions related to inheritance of property, history, and culture. This led to the birth of the Madras School of Orientalism, which was to have an important role in identifying a distinct family of languages in southern India, unrelated to Sanskrit, the genitor of northern modern Indo-Aryan languages. The distinctiveness of the languages such as Tamil, Kannada, Malayalam, Telugu spoken in southern India was noticed. Ellis 1816 and Shadwell 1856 had contributed to the consolidation of a separate Dravidian language family, as stated by Trotman and Venkateshwaralu. This was a significant development in the understanding of Indian philology. In the present day, the majority of Dravidian languages, namely Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, and Malayalam, are concentrated in the southern part of the country, but there also exists a few northern outlier languages belonging to this family. Brahui in the Baluchistan of Pakistan, Kuruk, Maltu, Pengu in the east central parts of India. On the other hand, the Indo-Aryan languages, namely Hindi, Urdu, Punjabi, Assamese, Bengali, Odia, Gujarati, Marathi and Kashmiri are spread from the northwestern parts of India to the northeast. Two other major language families in India are the Austroasiatic. The Munda sub-branch of this family is represented by about a dozen languages in central India, and the Khassian sub-branch primarily in Meghalaya, and the Tibeto-Burman family of languages in the northeast. In 1956, the states of independent India were reorganized on linguistic basis. For the most part, each state had a majority language which takes precedence over the many others which existed in the region. The official language is not always, however, the majority language of the state. For example, many northeastern states use English for their purpose. Others, such as Gujarat, use Gujarati and Hindi as their official language. The linguistic demography brought out by the 1961 census of India listed 1,652 mother tongues. In the findings of 1971 census, the figure was substantially reduced and only 108 languages were spoken by more than 10,000 people who were officially recognized. The census of 2001 recorded the existence of 1,365 rationalized mother tongues, 234 identifiable mother tongues, and 22 major languages. The language-related data of 2011 census have not been released by the Government of India. This is where G.N. Davies' linguistic survey of indigenous languages of India becomes crucial. According to him, as voiced in his 2016 book, The Language Loss of the Indigenous, the language scenario in India is precarious. While India tops the UNESCO list of languages in danger with about 197 extinct languages, 850 languages still survive. PLSI has been able to identify about 780 of them, which is no small feat. Davy cautions that if we do not take seriously the situation and take stock of the complexity of it right away and engage in well-calibrated micro-planning for the remaining languages, we would soon lose the rich diversity and the fabulous reservoir of indigenous languages that are part of our culture and heritage. When a speech community comes to believe that education in some other language is alone the way ahead for its survival, the given community decides to adapt the new language situation. It would be pertinent, therefore, to consider whether there is something inherent in the dominant development discourse in the contemporary world that requires a diminishing of the world's linguistic heritage, that demands a kind of phonocide. And if that is the case, which is the task of a political and economic analysis to show, the future of human languages is frightening. The communities that are already marginalized within their local and national contexts, the ones that are already in a minority within the cultural context, the ones that have already been dispossessed of their ability to voice their concerns are obviously placed at the front line of the phonocide. In commenting this, G.N. Davy and his team of researchers have identified a larger problem of mismatch between the symbolic relation nurtured by the indigenous with the environment and the idea of development that is being put before them as the roadmap for the future. This conflict is not particular to any one country or continent. It cuts across nations with divergent economic profiles. One notices now in India and in other Asian and African countries an over-empowering desire among parents to educate their children through the medium of English, French or Spanish, in the hope that these languages will provide a certain visibility for the children who will grow up in the international market of productive labor. This desire has affected the schooling pattern in favor of an education through an international language which has not been witnessed in any previous era. Devi continues, over the last 2 centuries, thanks to the desires triggered by colonialism, imperialism, and globalization, the languages of the world have appeared to be distributed into 2 clear categories, the languages of knowledge and the languages of indigenous, thus turning everything indigenous into non-knowledge. This is developmental debacle and an economic liability to the productive world and the developed economy. In spite of political, social, and cultural hegemonies, works of language enthusiasts like Devi and numerous others give us hope. The languages in India or the Indian subcontinent, although belonging to different language families, show shared linguistic traits. These include retroflex sounds, subject, object, verb, word order, absence of prepositions, morphological reduplication, expressives, eco-formation, reduplicated verbal adverbs, explicator compound verbs, use of converbs, oblique marked subjects, morphological causatives, among many others. And eventually, over the centuries, exchanges among speakers of all these groups have resulted in convergence across languages and the genesis of India as a linguistic area. It is therefore not surprising that in a country with innumerable mother tongues belonging to 6 language families, we do coexist, albeit with internal conflicts, but we do so nonetheless. It is not the simple harmony in diversity philosophy, but the complicated and the real experience of unity in discord. This argument stems from the fact that it is rather impossible to use only the mother tongue outside the 4 walls of our homes, or unless people are compelled to stay in some remote corner of the country, not having any communication and contact with others. But that can never be the case in India. Language diversity is an accepted fact and way of life. No Indian has one single language. Multilingualism is an inherent trait of every Indian resident, which basically arises due to the fervent need to communicate across speech communities. In the words of the President of Sahitya Akademi in 1995, we speak one language at home, one language of the street, another of the province, besides the language of communication. Even while speaking, we are always translating from one language to another. With such enormous diversity, we are bound to be curious about what could be the contributing factors. Well, by now we have understood that these of the many factors could be the history of India, the geographical location where a person is placed, their economical and social caste status, ethnic groups, and sometimes even sex and age. This brings us to the conclusion of this lesson, and hope we have been able to understand what leads to this unique diversity of languages that India has. Thank you.